Hey, welcome back to another installment of the Wide Ride Podcast. I'm Manny Navarro, Miami Hurricanes beat writer, college football writer, recruiting writer for The Athletic, do a lot of different jobs for them. Joined once again by Carlos Ledo of the MIA All Day Podcast, who, as you can see here on YouTube, is marketing a new shirt uh, for Raul from Hialeah, one of our favorite all-time listeners. Have you shown this shirt to Raul yet? Did you get the okay from him to be able to sell this?
Yeah, so the issue is, Raul runs into legal trouble, right? And
Hmm.
Raul really is, other than stealing mangoes and selling them on the side of the road for cash, does not generate a whole lot of income. And a lot of that income goes directly to his vices and habits. So to be able to create a legal defense fund for a Raul, I have created, or my wife has really created. I've done absolutely nothing other than say, "Can you please do this?" And then she's the artiste, she's the expert on doing these kinds of things, has created these designs to sell shirts for Raul to help his legal defense fund and help him when it's time for him to basically what he does every week, uh, evade the law, as we say, and get legal defense to help him do that.
All right. Well, listen, whatever can help Raul out, we need to get him back on the show at some point to talk about these products. I don't know when we do that, but at some point we got to get that done. I know he goes on your podcast every now and then and hijacks it. But I'd love to get his thoughts on what the shirts look like.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Right now, he's unfortunately he's locked up. He's locked up right now, so he can't really speak. So we need to sell these shirts to get him out.
All right, we'll see if we can get that done. This is Tuesday, November 28th, right around 1 p.m. And the latest installment of the Wide Ride Podcast. As I said earlier, your Miami Hurricanes are 7-5, coming off a 45-20 victory at Boston College. But really, Carlos, we've already entered postseason mode because the transfer portal is cranked up. Guys are announcing that they're going early for the NFL draft. There's all kinds of things that are happening here, and the roster is in flux. And really, that's what we're going to probably spend most of the day talking about today. We're going to get to some mailbag questions, but I wanted to start with this. Tyler Van Dyke has entered the transfer portal. His era, his 28 career starts, and his time at Miami is over. Corey Flagg, the linebacker who started a boatload of games here at Miami, he is gone as well. Jafari Harvey, one of the edge rushers, is gone, and Don Chaney Jr., a running back. So four departures in terms of guys leaving. There's going to be more. I know that. Um, and then, of course, all signs are pointing to Cameron Kitchens and James Williams, I guess, declaring for the NFL draft soon. There could be some other guys, Leonard Taylor, for instance, a defensive tackle, who's been up on draft boards. He could be going as well. Some older guys who have been here 5 or 6 years already could be deciding, hey, I've had enough of college. So we'll see what happens there. But your reaction to the Tyler Van Dyke news and just what you think of what's happened here in the last 48 hours.
I mean, we were talking about it last year. I thought last year when the rumors of him possibly going to Alabama or somewhere else came up, I felt after the season that he had a year ago following the injury and the way things turned on him, with the way the fan base turned on him, he should have left last year. I thought he needed a fresh start. I thought he needed to go somewhere else. At the time before Gaddis got fired, I didn't think this was the best offensive fit for him. Obviously, Mario convinced him to stay. He fell in love with Shannon Dawson, thought he was a good fit for him in terms of his offense, and initially it was, and then all hell broke loose, and that's where we are today. And I think for Tyler Van Dyke, I think it's the best decision. I think he needs to get out of here. I think at this point, following the way his season ended, although he had a couple good games towards the end, it's time for him to get a fresh start and go somewhere else and go somewhere where he's not maligned, where he's not sort of where there's no vitriol when you bring up his name from the fan base, to give him a fresh start and see what he can do somewhere else, and see with some other offense and some other weapons what lies ahead for him. It sucks in terms of the timing because now if we don't break Raul out of prison soon, he's going to be the only quarterback available, and if we can't get him on the field, we can't get him out of prison, he's not going to be available to do that for the Hurricanes, because who knows who's going to start, because Brown so far hasn't touched the field. There seems to be a reason for that. Who knows if he's hitting the portal too? But overall, I mean, it's strange to see Tyler Van Dyke go from that meteoric rise to that precipitous fall, and it's all just been like one huge roller coaster. I mean, if you've ever ridden the Velocicoaster at Universal, this is Tyler Van Dyke's career. The guy took off and then quickly came back down, and there was a whole lot of loops in between, and it was a crazy ride, man. And he's gonna have to start somewhere else now and go see what happens.
Yeah, I went on the Big O show earlier today, and he asked me, what do I think Tyler ends up? Because everybody says, oh, it's going to be SMU because that's where Rhett Lashley is, his former offensive coordinator turned head coach. SMU has a pretty good situation with Preston Stone as their quarterback. I know he got hurt at the end of the season here, but I think the feeling is he's the guy of the future there. I don't know if they want to disrupt the apple cart from what I've heard. But they'll kick the tires. We'll see. I personally think Tyler will end up at a place like Kentucky, who just utilized Devin Leary for a year and kind of had him as a fill-in. I think those kind of programs, a Power Five program looking for a one-year guy, um, I think that's the kind of place that he goes. And I wouldn't be surprised, Carlos, if Xavier Restrepo, who of course led Miami in receiving, followed him because the two of them are very close. I think Xavier plays his best with Tyler, doesn't necessarily play best when Emory Williams or somebody else is quarterback for Miami. So, again, there could potentially be more departures here, and as we're recording the show, I'm sure as soon as we're done, there's going to be another one that comes out of left field that we haven't talked about yet. So it's just the way it is. But ultimately, Mario went on the Joe Rose show Monday and basically said, "Look, we're preparing to flip the roster again, right? Another 30 to 40 guys." Could potentially be coming in here. They've got 26 commitments right now as part of the recruiting class. Will all of those guys sign with Miami? I don't know. We'll see. I know that they're trying to flip a few guys. One of them is Ellis Robinson, the five-star defensive back who plays at IMG Academy. Has been committed to Georgia for a long time. His position coach, Fran Brown, is expected to be the coach at Syracuse. Aldarius Hayes, another elite linebacker, a Florida commitment, another guy they're trying to flip. Dylan Stewart, a defensive lineman who's committed to South Carolina. Hayes is committed to Florida. So there's potential big time additions here to the recruiting class. I'm gonna actually have a show Thursday with Frank Tucker of Rivals. Frank does a good job covering recruiting. We're gonna talk some more recruiting then. But Miami is certainly in it. I spoke to some people with the collective. I know that there's plenty of money, a big budget for Miami to try to keep some of these guys from straying and going elsewhere. And I think for the most part, the guys that Mario really wants to stick around probably are not going to leave. And the ones that do leave are guys that probably feel like they're not in the program's best interest going forward. In other words, they could be replaced by others. So the roster turnover is going to be fast and furious. As far as
And back to
replacements,
CBD, as far
yeah,
as CBD is concerned, I don't think, I can understand him going to Kentucky so he can be in the SEC and try and prove himself against the best competition to try and raise his draft stock. I don't know that that's the best fit for him offensively because Kentucky's offense is modeled more after a pro style offense, 11 personnel like the LA Rams run.
yeah.
And I don't know that's a fit for him. Yeah, I think he should look at something where he goes to an air raid offense or maybe even a run and shoot offense and see how that works out for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's got to play in an offense that has pace. That's where, what he had his most success in with Rhett Lashley over those last 6 games in 2021. I think pace has a lot to do with his success, as you've pointed out many times before, when we've done breakdowns of him. Some interesting names, I will say, though, as far as potential guys that could be coming to Miami via the portal. I don't want to share any of them yet because I don't want to get accused of ruining the surprise.
Tate Martell.
Yeah, Tate Martell's coming back. As far as the quarterback position, the ones that make sense to me, and a couple of names that I've heard here, Talia Tungavailoa, Tua's little brother, who's been the quarterback at Maryland. Now, that's going to take some creative waiver work with the NCAA to get it done, because Talia played 5 games as a freshman in 2019 at Alabama, and as you know, it's a 4-game limit, right, to maintain a red shirt. So I don't know how they're going to pull that off. They're going to maybe go to Alabama and pay somebody off over there to say, no, he really only played in 4 games. But according to his bio on the Maryland website, he played 5. So that would discount his extra redshirt season, which is why he's listed as a redshirt senior. So we will see if that gets done. Will Rogers, former starting quarterback of Mississippi State, Cam Ward, Washington State. Those are 3 guys that I think are high up on the priority list for Miami in terms of bringing in a transfer quarterback. And I think, Carlos, while I told you guys last week it could be 2 transfer quarterbacks Miami goes out and gets, um, I would say that situation is sort of in flux. If they sign Judd Anderson and then get Cedric Bailey, who's a local kid who's a quarterback for JoJo Trader, and Jeremiah Smith at Hollywood Chaminade, who's committed to NC State, they get him to flip from NC State to come to Miami. Then you take 2 high school quarterbacks, a transfer, and then you have Emory Williams coming back from his arm. And those are your 4 scholarship quarterbacks. As far as Jakari Brown, I know that Miami's been trying to convince him to stick around and play in the bowl game. I think from some of the intel I gathered earlier today, I think it could be leaning that way. So Miami may have Jakari for the bowl game, and then it'll sort of be reevaluated from there. But that's good news, and most likely than not, I think Miami's going to end up probably in the Sun Bowl as a makeup call to the Sun Bowl. Remember, they had to cancel that game not too long ago. They probably end up playing USC, which would be a great matchup. Miami and USC never play each other. And if they don't end up there, I think it's probably the Pinstripe Bowl, which of course they've played in before as well up at Yankee Stadium. So I threw a lot out there. Go with it wherever you want to go.
Well,
I
I
had a
mean,
lot to say. I had a lot to share.
yeah, the Jakari Brown thing is interesting. I think, his decision has to be: do I protect my body, or do I want to put some tape out there to increase my opportunities to get out of there?
Hmm.
So I think he's going to be gone eventually. I think at some point he's going to hit the transfer portal. I don't know if it's in the short window or in the spring window, but he to me is likely to hit the transfer portal, and I think he's probably looking at this bowl game as, hey, this is my chance to audition for other programs. Let me get out there, show what I can do, show that I actually am more accurate than they've been saying that I showed last year on tape, and of course I still have my athletic ability. And if I can put this team on my back and beat a high profile program like a USC, and in the last game of the season, then hey, that NIL money starts creeping up a little bit higher than what it was before when I'm looking to make moves. So I think it'd be smart for him to do that. But of course, the flip side of that is, what if he plays in that game and he gets injured, and now his NIL opportunities and his transfer opportunities are out the window? So who knows? I agree with you. I think if they sign two high school quarterbacks, they'll probably only land one transfer. I'd prefer just one high school quarterback out of this class, and then try and get a couple transfers, an older guy and a younger guy, and then you have some staggered competition coming into the season with Emory Williams. I think you need a 1 year guy at least at the transfer portal. If you're only going to go with one, you get a veteran guy that could come in as a stopgap for 1 year, be your starter, be the kind of guy you can depend on, and be a proven veteran to then hand it off to the younger guys that can compete after he leaves. I think Will Rogers is a good fit. I think just he's played against the best competition in the SEC. He's carved them up when he's healthy. He's thrown for a lot of touchdowns, for a lot of yards. Um,
12,000 yards.
yeah,
And
that's nothing to sneeze at, man. And
yeah,
I think Cam Ward's second to me. And if you're going to look a little younger, again, I'll mention Fernando Mendoza. I think him coming back home from Cal to Miami, the former Columbus quarterback, will create that competition amongst the young guys. If you're going to have a young guy and an old guy come in the transfer portal, but the bottom line is you need more quarterbacks. You need more arms to compete here, because look at what just happened. I mean, you just lost your veteran starter. You've got another guy that went down as backup and due to an injury, you got another guy who knows what's going to happen with him, Jakari Brown, and behind that, you've got nothing. You need at least four scholarship quarterbacks on a roster in case something like this happens, or in case you need competition to see who shakes out at the end.
yeah. And look, Emory Williams, I think is a guy that the coaching staff still feels very good about. He's coming off of that broken left arm that he suffered, basically pouring his guts out against Florida State to try to get that first down. I think he's won over the locker room in a lot of ways, and I think they sort of view him as the quarterback of the future. But there's a lot of improvement he needs to make, and as we've discussed on here before, you cannot go into next season without an experienced, proven quarterback. Emory needs time to develop. Jakari Brown, if he sticks around, he needs time to develop. And then, obviously you're going to come most likely with two freshman quarterbacks. You could have five scholarship guys probably at most here on the roster, depending on how things work out. But ultimately, I'm not worried about the quarterback position. Carlos, I've talked to enough people in the last 48 hours who have basically said to me, money is not going to be an issue in terms of NIL or even keeping this coaching staff intact, which I do think they want to do. I think they want to try to bring as many guys back. I think some of the chemistry issues that maybe were here a year ago aren't necessarily involved with this staff as it was a year ago. But they could upgrade at a spot or two in terms of the coaching staff if good quality coaches become available. Mario has done that. He's moved guys to analyst roles. He did it with Demarcus Van Dyke, right? Moved him to an analyst type role from cornerbacks coach. You could see the same thing with some of the other guys on the staff going forward. So we will see what happens there.
And you can
Um,
always bring in a veteran coach as an analyst for a year as a stopgap between them going on to their next program. A guy like a Chip Kelly or a guy whoever is getting fired around the country. Don't bring Jimbo Fisher down here. I don't want to see him as an analyst. I don't want to hear Jimbo. I don't want to hear from Jimbo about his offense.
I'm
But
pretty
somebody else
sure
like that.
I'm pretty sure Jimbo will not be coming down here. All right. So we had I asked for some comments on the mailbag. We can jump right into that. Oh, sorry, I got a response here from somebody I had DM'd a little while ago. That's it. No, didn't get a response that I wanted. But as far as the NIL collective goes, the Canes connection, I think, Miami fans should feel reassured that it's one of the stronger ones, I think, in college football. I want to make that point clear. And I think they understand that they're going to have to spend money to attract guys. So that's not going to be an issue. I know it's been an issue in Miami's past, so that's encouraging. And to me, for everybody who flips out about who takes off from this team, if an Xavier Restrepo takes off or a Jacoby George or somebody of that nature takes off to go somewhere else in the transfer portal, I think there's enough young talent on this roster and certainly enough money in the NIL to replace those guys. So it's going to be a little bit of, you mentioned Tyler Van Dyke's career being a bit of a roller coaster, Carlos. I think we should expect an offseason of roller coaster moments.
Yeah, and listen, Kane's Connection, if you're listening to me, which I'm pretty sure you're not, but just in case you are, to me, the one guy you got to bring back on offense, the one guy you got to make sure doesn't go, if you can entice him to stay, is Matt Lee. If you could pay Matt Lee and keep that offensive line together,
Yeah.
I think that would be huge for the program.
Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily made a final decision yet. I think it could come down to where he's projected in the NFL draft. Obviously Javian Cohen's already announced he's playing in the Senior Bowl. But as far as guys that could potentially come back, Jared Harrison Hunt's another one I think you have to watch. He's played 5 years of college football already. Sometimes guys just get tired, right? They don't want to keep playing. He's played a lot of snaps. Getting him back, I think, would be important. You're a fan of Jared Harrison
Yeah,
Hunt.
yeah, he played really well this season. I think he was more consistent than Leonard Taylor this year.
Right. And I'm looking at his career numbers. 1,339 snaps, 21 starts. But again, you could potentially lose Branson Dean, Leonard Taylor, right, at D tackle. Both of those guys played a ton. If Harrison Hunt comes back, uh, you've got younger guys. Ahmad Moten had the interception against Boston College. Jake Lichtenstein is done, but you have Josh Horton. You got Collins Achiampong. All of these guys that Mario um, signed in the last year. Those freshmen are going to continue to
Right.
develop. I
But
think
he
those
signed a bunch of edge guys and the guys that are tweeners, and he hasn't
right.
signed any monster D tackles. And I think that's an area they have to address in the portal. Aside from quarterback, they've got to go after defensive tackle and get a couple big dudes at the defensive tackle spot.
But I think this is going to be the case every year. There's going to be like it's just I think it's a mentality that fans have to sort of accept, Carlos, is you're going to lose guys and you're going to replace. It's just part
Yep.
of the musical chairs now. And I think, the days of like, hey, you recruit a class and guys stick with you is not the case. I mean, look, everybody in the country is losing young players to the portal. So I think guys that basically see the writing on the wall, hey, I'm not really part of this offense. Hey, I'm not really part of this defense. I don't really start. I'm not a main focus. Like Jafari Harvey's a perfect example. He started 5 games for Miami this year, had 1 sack. The last couple games he hardly played. Miami went in a different direction with some other guys, and it's
And
just,
Jafari Harvey, to me, he reminds me of Ronnie Cycli for the
hmm
Heat back in the day. Every year you heard that Ronnie Cycli was working on his post moves and his free throw shooting, and he was going to be much improved in both areas. And then you just kept waiting for it to happen, and it
right,
never did. You kept waiting for Jafari Harvey to have that breakout year where he had 6, 7 sacks, 9 sacks, 10 sacks, and
yeah.
became this monster defensive end because he has all the talent and ability to do so. And it just never happened, which is a shame because he's a good guy and a good dude, and he's produced here, but he just hasn't produced at the level you anticipated. And a lot of these guys are going to end up leaving or hitting the portal. That's the case. And it's not necessarily a situation where they're bad players. It's just they weren't a fit and they didn't produce, and it's time for them to get a change of scenery or see if something happens somewhere else. And I think that's
Yeah.
the other guys you're going to bring here in Miami. You were sometimes restricted to those types of guys from other programs that were coming in. They're like, okay, we're trying to reestablish ourselves, raise our profile for the draft before we go, but we haven't really produced from where we're coming from. Back when Manny Diaz was here, but now with Mario and the NIL money, you can go out and hunt guys that have been productive at lower tier Power Five schools or even non-Power Five, Group of Five schools that have been really productive guys that are star players, and bring those guys here that can plug and play and really supplement this roster. And I think that's what they're going to do now.
So the way it is, it's a new college football world, and that's why it's the Wild West. It's just, it's gonna happen. There's gonna be departures. You replace guys. You keep moving on. All right, let's get to the mailbag, Carlos, because we got a lot of comments here. We got
Oh, I can imagine.
a lot of people with thoughts on their minds, questions. I don't even know where to start, but I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start here with a familiar face. Nick Strong, KY Kane, 23, says, "What are your thoughts on the fan base excited that now all of Manny's kids are gone and that Mario has the roster full of his own guys. The Mario supporters really hate the Manny kids. Carlos, I'll let you start.
I don't think that's necessarily true because Leonard Taylor, James Williams, and Cam Kitchens were Manny guys, and people love them, right?
Right.
So is Jacoby George. So is Xavier Restrepo. So I don't think that's quite the case, Nick. But I think overall, after 3 years of Mario, you're going to have enough talent on this roster that was handpicked by him that's going to make a difference, I think, in terms of how the roster is shaped and how the roster is put together and the foundation that's laid out for the program. Um,
You
yes,
flipping backgrounds now?
I'm trying to market as much as I can, man. I picked the
Okay.
wrong one, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. Just listen to my voice. I'll take care of things. Um, so yeah, I think you filtered out enough of the bad Manny recruits and kept enough of the good ones to supplement with what Mario's bringing in. But I think overall, what you really want in this roster is enough depth and competition for it to be a situation where if you have departures, injuries, or even competition, like I said, to increase the ability of these guys to get better because of the competition on the roster, that's what you want. And I think Mario's bringing in enough of his guys that were handpicked by him to sort of flip that over.
I agree, and
Look at that one. That one's nice.
it's a little distracting, but it's good. I mean they're pretty. They're nice shirts. Here's what I would say, Nick, in response to you. I think ultimately Mario has flipped the culture, and a lot of the problematic Manny guys are gone. And to say that the Manny guys that are entering the portal and leaving, you know, a lot of them made plays to help this program win the last couple of years. Tyler Van Dyke made a lot of plays to help this program win the last couple of years. Corey
Yep.
Flagg made a lot of plays to help this program win some games.
I'm sad to see him go. Yeah.
Jafari Harvey made plays. This isn't so much about Manny versus Mario guys. I think this is just more about, can these guys win a national championship? Are these players capable of raising their level of play to where Miami's not going to go 7-5, right? Like, let's face it. Uh, I'm gonna have a story in the Athletic tomorrow, sort of breaking position by position down. But my lead to my story is essentially that Miami finished 7-5, and you look at teams that had top 50 offenses and defenses, scoring offenses and defenses. They were one of, I think, 22 Power Five programs to have a top 50 offense, top scoring defense, and they had a 7-5 record. Them and Texas A&M were the two teams that had the worst records um, with top 50 offenses and top 50 scoring defense. And it all goes back to turnovers. If Miami protects the ball better, I mean, their 21 turnovers are tied for the third most among Power Five schools that made bowl games. I mean, them and Clemson are tied for third in terms of third most. I think the only teams that had more were Cal and UCLA in terms of coughing the ball up.
Hmm.
So if Miami plays cleaner football, they're 9-3. I think we all understand that, right? Like they don't lose Georgia Tech for sure, and they probably don't lose the game at NC State. And how are you feeling about the program now? So again, it's not so much Manny bad culture guys, Mario good culture guys. It's great players versus good players. And that's what
Right.
Mario's trying to do. He's trying to bring in great players.
And I'll give you an example. I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine last night, and of course, it turns to Canes football, and that's pretty much my existence. Um, so we're talking about Xavier Restrepo, and he's had a great year.
Mm-hmm.
Made a lot of catches. He's made a lot of plays the last couple of years. Unfortunately, last year was cut short a little bit because of an injury, but this year he's really stood out as a superstar in the offense. But is he, like I just said, a superstar? Is he a guy you can count on in the slot to make defenses worry that you're going to blow the top off of a defense, that he could catch a slant and take off and go 80 yards on you? Is he the type of player that's explosive enough to lead you to a national championship in the slot? No, he's a steady guy. He's a really good player, but he's not an elite player at that
Right.
position. So if he goes and you upgrade that position, I think you could even upgrade that position in house, man. I think, a guy like Brashard Smith can get more snaps. I think Jacoby George to me is more of a slot guy than he is an outside guy because of his size. He's not thick enough to me to play outside full time. He gets the times that he is unable to break free is when he's got bigger corners on him that could physically, mash him up and get physical with him and make contact with him. But you see when he's in motion and when he's moving and he's got free releases, what he can do in space. And I think he's the kind of guy that could be like a Jordan Addison or even a Josh Downs in that slot with that use of speed, and that could elevate the offense that much more. And I think that's what you have to look at. You have to look internally and say, what guys do we feel can still help us here that we can maybe play in the same positions or maybe move other places that can help us elsewhere and take this to a different level. Um, and if not, who can we go out there and upgrade with? Who can be an upgrade on this roster? I think you can even look at guys that have been productive here and that are going to stay. And if you find somebody else out there in the transfer portal that's wanting to come in and as an upgrade, you bring it in. You want competition. The more talent you have, the better. And I think falling in love with a group of players from one regime or a group of players from another regime, or hating one or hating the other because they are this guy's recruits or that guy's recruits, is, to me, it's senseless. What you want is the best players on the roster to make the best team possible.
I agree. This is from our buddy Larry Shender from Miami Media Associates. Will Raul be the starting quarterback for our Tatooine bowl game? Prediction on starting quarterback against the Gators in next year's opener.
Raul is not the quarterback you're looking for. Sorry, Larry. But listen, if you want Raul to play quarterback, at least have a chance, at least give a pregame speech, buy this shirt.
um, it'll be Jakari Brown if he sticks around, and if it's not him, it'll be a walk-on, and Miami will just go through the motions like everybody else in college football. I said this to I had a conversation with David Lake from 247 earlier today, and I said this to him because we talked about the bowl games. I think eventually college football is going to move bowl games to the spring because if you think about it, this roster, like the time of year when you're playing these bowl games that are basically meaningless and all the best players are sitting out, it's not good. Like you could potentially see a walk-on quarterback from Miami and who knows who for USC if that's who they play in the Sun Bowl. And you're gonna have a bunch of players out because they're getting ready for the draft. I think they ought to move bowl season to the spring and play them in April and let teams take a trip somewhere around the country to play a spring game and make it exciting for the fans. I think that's ultimately what I hope they do. And just, once you go to the 12-team playoff, then go to the 12-team playoff. That's what you watch. That's it. I just think
I mean,
it's kind of dumb to play them now.
it is, but I mean, what do you waiting till the spring to play a bowl game? People are going to forget what bowl game you're even in and who your opponent's supposed to
Well,
be.
but you do it in the spring. You set it up. You make it an event. You make college football in April or late March exciting, and you rotate the games. You give them a game time. You don't think people would tune in to a spring exhibition game between two teams that
Yeah,
just
absolutely. I don't think that should replace spring game, bowl games, but I think that'd be a great idea instead of having to watch spring games that are meaningless, where you got a bunch of guys that are basically playing tag against each other.
but so many guys are sitting out now, Carlos, that it's ridiculous. Like you're playing a bunch of kids that haven't played the whole season. You're giving them a game where and you're some teams like Miami could potentially have a walk on at quarterback. Like what value is that? Who's tuning in to watch a game like that? Whereas I think in the spring you could market it in an entirely different way. Hey, these are the guys that we just added to the roster via the portal. This is your first chance to watch these guys in action. They're
Well,
so
the
it's
issue, the main driver is going to be money. Can you make money with that kind of a setup? Is there going to
I
be enough star
why
power to
not?
do it? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there is or if there isn't. I think these sponsors like using the bowl games during the time of year that it is, especially the ones in December leading into January, because it's holiday season. And it's a great time to market and advertise their products before a big buying season. So that's one of the driving factors for bowls in terms of their sponsorships. The other part of it is, also schools are out during that time in terms of universities. Their semesters are over. It makes a big difference in that sense. You feel like your alumni, your students, your teachers, they can all travel to these games during that time period. You could do it during spring break, but it's going to be crickets because most people are going to be where it's fun.
I don't know. I'd
Most
rather
people will be
see it
with
in the
Raul in
spring.
spring break and for Lottie Dottie.
I'd rather see it in the spring at this point. My prediction on the starting quarterback against the Gators in the season opener, I think it'll be whoever the transfer is. I don't think it'll be Emory Williams, and I don't think it'll be Jakari Brown. It'll be whoever is the transfer, whether that's Will Rogers, whether that's Cam Ward, whoever it is that they get. Will Howard. There's a lot of Wills out there that are available in the transfer portal right now, Carlos.
Is that a bad thing? Will
No.
Ferrell.
No. This is from King_Reezy on Twitter. We anticipate staff changes, more specifically at the coordinator spots. What about Joe? I'm assuming that's Joe Salavea, the defensive line
Why
coach.
do people hate Joe Salavea so much? Let's have that conversation real quick. Apparently, people really dislike this guy for some reason. He seems like a good dude to me. They apparently hate him because they say he can't recruit.
Yeah, I think that's the reason because Miami didn't get any of those elite defensive tackles committed, the ones that they had gone after. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Joe. I think again, I don't think there's going to be major turnover on this roster in terms of coordinators, unless Lance Guidry wants to go to LSU, which Kelvin swears to me that's not the case, that he's going to stay at Miami, because he had a conversation with your boy Lance. So I don't know. I think I don't think he's going to make a change at offensive coordinator at this point. I think you kind of want to have a little bit of stability, right? You had a decent year, you took a step forward. Um, it just depends. Analysts, there's so many different ways you can bring people in, right, to have a positive influence on what you want to do. So I don't anticipate many changes. Whereas last year I felt at the end of the year, yes, there's going to be changes.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on who you get as the coordinator in terms of Shannon Dawson, right, on offense. Are you going to get the Shannon Dawson you saw in the last couple games of the season,
Yeah,
and you saw early on, or are you going to get the guy you got in the middle of the season who was just basically scared, calling the game tight, calling it from a box, and that it all depends on that. Can he also evolve his offense a little bit? Can he take advice? Maybe bring in a consultant to help him sort of reshape the offense.
yeah,
Maybe bring in Dana Holgerson, who just got fired, and take a look at that. Maybe Houston's got a quarterback we can look at there too, since he recruited some of those guys. But maybe
right.
bring in Dana Holgerson and have him consult with Dawson and say, listen, this is where you're not incorporating. Maybe take a look at this, take a look at that. I mean, there's a million, like you said, there's a million different ways you can go. Ultimately, I'd be okay with both coordinators coming back if Dawson is the guy we saw at the end of the year and we saw at the beginning of the year, not the guy we saw in the middle. I definitely love what Gidry's been doing. I think his ability to mix that 4-2-5 with a 3-3-5 stack when he had injuries at the defensive line was tremendous. I
Yeah,
think his run defense to me was incredibly impressive, and that to me is where it starts. Is being able to be strong up front against a run to force teams into third and long situations, and force them into obvious passing situations where you can pin your ears back and come after them. That helps a defense, and he did it all while being undersized up front, which is impressive. And
yeah.
Lord knows what he could do with some additional talent, with some additional beef up there. But who knows who comes calling? If I'm Texas A&M, right? First of all, Mike Elko, I think it was the best hire for A&M. I didn't think Stoops was going to be a good hire. I think that's the way to go. If I'm Mike Elko, I give Guidry a call, even though I may not know him. There's people that know people. You know how these coaches work in these circles. They all have people that know guys. And I'd go after Guidry and bring him over to Texas A&M and make him my DC. But hopefully he stays.
Um, yeah, again, I tend to think that Miami's in a good spot to keep its coaches. I think the only one that would go is Guidry, and he had a good year, and when you prove it at multiple levels, people are going to come after you. So we will see what happens here. Crown Me Mac on Twitter wanted to know about the current QBs in the portal, who we think would be an upgrade to the current QB room. We mentioned some of those names already. Mac, Stephen Thunder 56 Blacks again on Twitter says, is Dante Moore worth trying to lure away from UCLA again? And what are we hearing about possible Texas A&M transfers? Well, yes. I mean, I think if Moore is available, and I'm make sure that's the right name because he wrote Dante Brown. It's not Dante Brown. It's Dante Moore. I was right. I
Yeah,
was confused for a second. I'm like, wait a minute, what is it? Dante Brown? And I screw this up all this time? No, it's Dante Moore. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what happens with Chip. Somebody had mentioned that he may not be getting fired now, so who knows if he's
really,
back? Huh?
really.
Yeah, I mean, that was the last report I saw late last night with Chip Kelly that he's supposed to be coming back and getting an extension. So
He went from getting fired to getting an extension. Who's this guy's agent? I mentioned yesterday on Twitter that David Blaine is going to have to be the offensive coordinator, or Shannon Dawson is going to have to act like him if he's got no quarterbacks going into this bowl game. But my God, David Copperfield might be Chip Kelly's agent.
hey man, those guys are good. Um, Brown, I guess, or more. God, now I'm gonna call him Dante Brown. Thank you, 56 Blacks against Stephen
Roger
Thunder.
Moore. Roger Moore.
Yes, Dante Moore. If he gets into the portal, obviously I think he's somebody Miami kicks the tires on. But I don't at this point. If Kelly's staying, I don't think that happens. As far as the Texas A&M transfers, I think they're obviously waiting to see what's going to happen with Elijah Robinson, the defensive line coach, who was there. Obviously they made their hire as head coach, and I think Robinson is probably going to stay on with Mike Elko. They worked together previously, if I'm not mistaken, and I think Robinson is the key to all those players at Texas A&M, or a lot of them. They like him. They want to play for him. I think as long as he stays on staff, then maybe hold on to a lot of those kids. Obviously, the one that everybody wants to know about is Shamar Stewart, the defensive lineman who's a former 5-star from here, Monsignor Pace. I don't know if Miami goes out and gets him or somebody else, but I agree with you, Carlos. I think at some point they're going to upgrade a D tackle.
Yeah, they have to. I think they have to. Guidry did a lot of good work with the small guys that he had, but I think if they're going to compete at the elite level, if they're going to be the Alabamas and the Georgias, if they want to be in the playoff and they want to be competitive in the playoff, they've got to improve that defensive line at tackle like they did the offensive line, and that'll help carry over. And I think you've got that great offensive line coming back. If you could hold on to Matt Lee for another year, that'd be fantastic, and give another guy a chance to season themselves and become the next center. Because you could plug in Matthew McCoy right away to replace Cohen, or you could maybe slide Rivers down and start Okunlola at tackle, and you still got a great offensive line there.
This is from Andrew V _17 on Twitter, another one of our loyal listeners. Have you heard any new names that could leave the roster? Do you think QB Will Rogers, Mississippi State, would be an upgrade for us? Would prefer a mobile quarterback? I shared most of the names. I think, look, again, I'm not even going to mention guys that aren't playing. Like, you can do the math. I'm going to read my story in the Athletic tomorrow. I'll have the full roster list with career snaps, career starts. Anybody who is a sophomore, junior, like not a freshman that didn't play this season, they're all eligible to leave. Like, to me, they're all guys that could go. And then as far as Will Rogers, Carlos, what do you want a more mobile quarterback? Rogers isn't one of those mobile guys. He is
No,
a
I mean, ideally you'd like a mobile quarterback, right?
yeah,
But I think you can't pass up on a guy who's thrown for over 12,000 yards in the SEC, who's thrown a ton of touchdowns and has got a really
yeah,
good touchdown interception ratio, and has thrown in his best years over 35 touchdowns twice, I believe.
yeah,
Uh, and that's something TVD never touched, even during his hot streak.
yeah. This is from Columbus Kane, another loyal follower of ours. Any defensive tackle chatter you've heard, whether it's high school or transfer portal. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but Dylan Stewart. Did I mention Dylan Stewart earlier?
I don't think so.
He's
Or
the
did you?
5-star that Miami tried to get from South Carolina. That's a hot rumor. I got my list of notes here from all the conversations I've had here. He is a hot rumor of a potential flip for Miami. In terms of the high school ranks. But again, Mario signed some guys that redshirted this year. Collins Achimpong, Josh Horton played 32 snaps. Anthony Campbell, the kid they brought in from Louisiana, played 8 snaps. You got Ahmad Moten who had the interception at the end. Like, there's bodies. It's not like they're completely devoid of I don't know, bodies to squeeze in there if a guy like Jared Harrison, Hunt, Leonard Taylor leave. If they do, it's gonna suck because you're gonna have to obviously rely on some guys that haven't played. But that's what the transfer portal's for. And as far as names, I mean, again, Shamar Stewart's one of them, obviously, that I think is out there. If things change at Texas A&M, there's other guys that they're going to be able to target. D tackles. Listen, you had never heard of Branson Dean or Thomas Gore, right? Last
Right.
year until they announced they were coming. So again, and then you have Akeem Mesidor that you hope comes back. You have Ruben Bain, you got Nigel Lee Kelly, you got some young pieces that are quality defensive linemen, and obviously Lance Guidry proved you can play the 3-3-5 and be pretty good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they look great in the 3-3-5. I think they should have used him more towards the end of the season. But like you said, it all depends on what's out there and what you have available in terms of resources to try and fill this roster and see who goes and what you have to replace. To me, you've got to obviously address quarterback number one, and I think defensive tackle number two, and then after that, you fill in around the edges, of whatever you have available. At that point, it's whatever best player available is what you take off the board.
Right. This is from RCJ Matt or Jeff on Twitter. Will the portal hurt more than it helps this year? It's a good question, Jeff. What do
Or
you
Matt,
see? Or Matt, right?
whatever your name is.
RCJ Matt. We don't know. I mean, like, it's hard to sort of predict that. Is it going to hurt? Or, I mean, I think what's going to hurt Miami more than anything is losing a couple of underclassmen that I think, I mean, if Cam Kitchens is really going to be a first round pick, then he should go. But James Williams, Leonard Taylor, uh, you know, those will sting, right? Like, those are guys that are quality players that maybe aren't the greatest of players, but they're quality players. and key rotation pieces and starters. And, to lose any guys like that, I think hurts. If you lose a Damari Brown to the transfer portal, right? Like his brother Devontae didn't play a whole lot here after he transferred in from UCF. Like, what if the Browns decide to leave together to go to Florida State and go play for Randy Shannon or something, right? Like, what if something like that? That'll sting, right? But those things have to play out. We have yet to see it. It's just speculation. So right now, I tend to believe that Mario is going to upgrade the roster, and in the end, come August, you're going to feel better about this roster than the one that just finished 7-5. That's my feeling. Carlos?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing you can count on for Mario is talent acquisition. That's his forte. That's what he's great at, and he knows how to identify the kind of guys that he wants on his roster, the type of talented guys he wants, and it's not only just high end talent, but also talent that fits his scheme and his style. So I think if guys depart, if guys leave, even in key positions, even really good players, he will go out there and find guys to replace them that maybe aren't as talented, but maybe fit the system a little bit more. Because let's be honest, all right? Let's have a real honest conversation, guys. You can come in a little bit closer here, okay? James Williams is a physical beast, but has he played to his potential? Has he really played like the
Led the team
physical?
in tackles the last 2 years.
Yes, he also led the team in coming in high and trying to shoulder everybody down and blast people and missing tackles, and it was also terrible in coverage this year. So let's not get all excited. Yes, he played well, but he wasn't great. All right, he was good, but he wasn't great. Leonard Taylor, has Leonard Taylor been as dominant as we've thought he was going to be? Has Leonard Taylor given us enough consistency at that defensive tackle spot as we were anticipating coming into the season? We thought this was going to have to be his breakout year for him to really push himself up the draft boards. He's still going to get drafted on potential, but he hasn't been that Gerald Willis type that we were expecting, right? So to
Right.
me, sometimes you can have all the talent in the world and you can be a physical beast, but sometimes it takes a guy with a little less talent, but a little more heart and willingness to work and understand and play within a scheme and a system to do the things that he needs to do to be successful. Can you imagine if James Williams would actually just wrap people up? Like, can you imagine if he knew what he was doing in coverage, how he would take his game to another level? And sometimes because they're so physically gifted, they don't put in the work on the fundamental things, on the little things, and they just go out there and freestyle sometimes. Not saying
Right.
that he always does it, but on occasion he does it, and it hurts the team, and it so does anybody in the team. But I think really you could see it in those two guys, in James Williams and Leonard Taylor, to me, where they haven't really hit their potential because I don't think they've been one consistent and two really played within the framework of the system as much. But if they leave, I would rather them stay on the team. I'd like to see them see if they could reach their potential here at Miami. But you can replace them with other guys that maybe play a little bit better within the system and make you a better team, a better defense as a whole, because you're not having these gaps and holes in the system or holes in the scheme and coverages and the play up front. And you're maybe wrapping guys up and rather giving up a 50-yard gain, or it's only 10 or 12, right?
Right.
So that makes a huge difference too.
Joe Kane wanted to know about Xavier Restrepo, which I've already mentioned, right? That I think he could potentially go wherever TVD goes. He wanted to know if are they that close? Yes, I think they just, look. Restrepo played his best when Tyler was throwing him the ball. There's no doubt. Like that's a given. Um, Joe mentions given TVD's mental and physical limitations, being hurt a lot. Where do you think he lands next? Yeah, I said I think it'll be a Power Five program in my mind. Um, this is from Myrick McCray, MJ McCray on Twitter. They're going through multiple sessions of the transfer portal, opening and closing, bringing in 2 recruiting classes, purging, cycling the roster with 30 new faces, now declaring that 30 new guys are needed for 2024. When can we finally say that Mario has, quote, his guys? I think right now we can say Mario has his guys, right? Like once more than half the roster is your guys and you're going to do it again, like this coming season, you can 100% say this is Mario's roster. Like he handpicked the guys that stayed and he handpicks the guys that go. And he had an opportunity to run guys off and did. And so to me, I think this you can already say it with this roster. These were Mario guys.
I would say year 4 because that
Okay.
gives
You're
you
giving him that much cushion. Okay.
right, because you really want to see him cycle through 3 recruiting classes and then plug those transfer portal guys in there, and then his first recruiting class will end up being juniors at that point or redshirt sophomores.
Right.
And you've got guys that have been in the system long enough that are veteran guys now that know the culture, know the system, know what it takes, and then they could pass that down. And that's what you really want. You want the culture and the system and the attitude of the program to filter from the top to bottom, and it comes from the players from within. Once you got those senior leaders, those guys are at least veteran guys, older guys that are passing that down, and it continues to be a cycle at that point where it just feeds itself. Then you've got a full roster of guys that are truly yours because they have your system ingrained in them. Right now, it's still sort of hodgepodge. You're still mixing it in. They're still filtering in the old and bringing in the new. And until you get to that fourth year, I think it doesn't really go all the way in terms of building that roster out.
That's a fair argument. I just think in terms of who you can point the finger at and say, well, this why didn't he upgrade here or why didn't he upgrade there? Mario could have run other guys off and he had 2 years to do that, right? To tell guys get out of here, and he has. And this, so to me, I think it's this next roster. You can say wholeheartedly, hey, he had two cycles to run this guy off or to get him to go elsewhere. These are all the guys he wanted, for sure in this coming season. This is from Marcus Miranda, Hurricane Mark. Why is it that the forward pass under Mario seems to be a more difficult? Jesus, I get all these messages coming in. Seems to be a more difficult operation than that rover that landed on Mars. It was better last game, but always the case wherever he's been. Should have been better with Herbert, Brown, TVD. What will be an issue with the next QB?
Well, you see, because Mario grew up playing football during the Flintstones era. So back then, footballs were not real footballs. They were like made out of concrete, and the birds were the ones that would peck them out and create the footballs for you, and you throw them around. It's just his style and his attitude, man. I think uh, well, you're seeing what Herbert's been a little bit inconsistent in the NFL too. He's a very talented guy, but he can turn the ball over a little bit, and that's maybe what Mario saw, and he held him back a little bit because he didn't want to have the ball turned all over the place. That's what he hates. Mario hates turnovers. He despises them. Unfortunately, he's gotten a ton of them the last couple of years, but he tries to play in a way that avoids those turnovers.
Right.
To me, he's got to have a good marriage between coordinator and quarterback, and then also have the skill position guys to be able to exploit that. I don't think he's fully had that yet, either, even at Oregon. Um, I think now he's starting to build towards that, but he still doesn't have his quarterback. I don't know if Emory Williams is going to be that guy, or if it's going to be
Right.
somebody who's down the road. At least for a year, it could be somebody else from a different program that comes in as a transfer and at least elevates his program to a different level. I think eventually it's going to work out. I think what he needs to do before anything else, I think landing a 5-star receiver, if he could land a Jeremiah Smith, if he could land a guy like that and bring in that type of talent receiver, then that helps the quarterback a whole lot. Because I can tell you this, throughout my playing days, I wasn't all that great, but I had some dudes that I threw the ball to that made me look like a stud just because I could throw a 5-yard slant and they could go 95 yards with it.
um, yeah, I agree. I think to me, the more I study Mario and his just approach to this game, you know who would have been a perfect quarterback for Mario? Jordan Travis. Because he
Yeah.
didn't turn the ball over a lot. He made enough plays with his legs, and he got the ball in the hands of his playmakers. That's the ideal quarterback for Miami
Man, you
in the
see,
way
it's
Mario
it's
likes to
always
play.
it's always these Florida State comparisons, and
I apologize. I apologize. It's the FSU fan in me that keeps coming
you
out.
got to bring
I
up your
don't.
favorite team every show.
I know. I know. JW Aces Canes and Nick Green, Big Juice 52 on Twitter, basically wanted to get our opinions on the quarterback situation, our favorite quarterback in the portal to go after. Nick Green wanted a top 5 in the portal. Which ones do you think Miami lands? I think they get 2 and let them compete. We kind of talked a lot about the quarterback situation, but do you have a favorite right now, Carlos, of the guys that are available?
Um, to me, Will Rogers, he's the most proven. To me,
Okay.
he's been the most productive. That would be the guy for me. And Cam Ward's second. I would say I think Pratt from Tulsa, or was it Tulsa?
Tulane, he's going to the
Tulane,
NFL probably. Yeah.
going to the NFL probably. I would love him. And I like Mendoza also, although he's not as proven. He's a Miami guy. I think he's got a lot of talent, cerebral kid. I think he'd be good down here. But again, it really depends on what you're looking for. I think whoever it is, Dante Moore would be an upgrade, obviously, as well. Really talented guy. Whoever it is, I think it'll work out. Don't worry about it. And as far as the portable is concerned, instead of the portal, we're not having health class here. All right. This isn't 10th grade. We're not going out to the portables to like listen to the teacher
You're
discuss
killing me, man.
human biology. All right.
I apologize for saying portables and not portals. I
No, it's all
apologize.
good. It's all good. It's all good.
Uh,
It brought me back to my fond memories of sitting in
of
those portables in high school and middle school.
T Miller Golf wants to know, who do you want the Canes to play in the bowl game and why? I think USC in the just playing USC would be great. I just want to see Miami and USC play each other. I'm all for the Pac-12, former Pac-12, right? Big Ten now. Like seeing teams that Miami hasn't played in a long time. I don't want to see them play Oklahoma State or Rutgers or somebody of that nature. Like, give me an exciting team that we haven't seen Miami face in a while. That's all.
Yeah, that'd be great, but also somebody they could beat. Just give me a win.
All
Send me
right.
home happy after this season.
We will see. This is from Veconomics. Will the new narrative be that Mario needs more years to find a QB? No, because he can get a QB right now in the transfer portal. I'm not giving him that leeway. This is year 3. To me, he's got to get a quarterback and he's got to win with this quarterback next year. Correct or incorrect, Carlos?
Yeah, I mean now he's handpicking his quarterback, which is different. He didn't get to do that before. He recruited Emory Williams, but it wasn't like he was able to recruit Tyler Van Dyke and pick his starter. But now he
Yeah.
is. He's going to go out in the portal and try and handpick his starter. So whoever this quarterback that comes in is, whoever it might be, that's Mario's choice. That's Mario's guy. He's hand selected him for that reason. And Kane's
Hmm.
connection has cut the check and bought a bunch of MIA all day shirts to give to the kid and the other guys on the roster.
Human Kane, Mr. Draper 5 says, outside of quarterback, name 2 position groups that have to step up to get us to a 10-win program. He also wants us to rate each position coach, but let's just start with 2 position groups that have to step up to get Miami to a 10-win program.
Defensive tackle and corner.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would also say on offense, tight end, right? It's just not at the caliber that it needs to be, and I think whether that involves Elijah Arroyo getting to the point where he's not scared anymore because of all the injuries he's had, and you have an elite guy in the middle of the field, I think that's another one. I would say D tackle and tight end to me. I think cornerback, you're going to get there eventually. I think there's going to be some good players here at cornerback, but um, to me, I think to win a 10 wins, get to make a college football playoff, you got to have a good tight end. It's just part of the game now in college football. You cannot be one dimensional. This offense can't be just, hey, the receivers are the only guys who catch the ball. You need to have a special room there. I mean, the best teams that actually win have tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't mentioned that at all this season. The tight end not
No,
being available or being just
not
not at all,
once.
or the running backs not getting the ball also in the passing game. I saw people put out some stuff this year or this week about the progress of the program in terms of their statistics and stuff like that, and they put out the receiving yards between Jacoby George, Colby Young, and Xavier Restrepo, and how that was much higher than a season ago, and even higher than 2022 compared to the top 3 receivers. The
Right,
difference is, I think you passed for less yards this year because you don't have a tight end involved like you did in 2021.
right.
And you didn't involve the running backs like you did in 2021. So you remember Jalen Knight making plays on those angle routes and screens and stuff like that. And you have Will Mallory. That gives the offense a different dimension. So yeah, your receivers could have accounted for more yardage, but because you didn't have those additional threats in the passing game in the tight end and running back, it sort of also limited their high end, their potential, their ceiling at the receiver position, and didn't create more opportunities for the offense where it didn't lead to more points. So I think that's the comparison.
Mario Gonzalez wants to know the real Mayuko on Twitter is his name.
Mayuko, all right.
Is the staff being blindsided by what's going on with the quarterback room? Were they not expecting Tyler to play in the bowl and the potential of Ja'Cory hitting the portal? Are they pitching Ja'Cory essentially play the bowl game as a tryout for your next school? Yeah, I think all of that could be true, except the part about them being blindsided. I think Mario and the staff have been at this long enough to know college. This is the way college football rolls. And at the end of the year, you're going to have your exit conversations, and kids are going to say, I want X amount of money to stay, or I'm going to this school because this school is offering me X amount of money. And that's just what happens. That's the way the game is played now. It is professional football. It is no longer college football. It is professional football. And everybody's professional here, including the players, the coaches, all of them. And Mario talked about it. I don't think they're blindsided in any way. In terms of Tyler, not were they not expecting to play in the bowl? I think it kind of became apparent, right, as the season went on when he lost a starting job that he could potentially leave, and then Jakari as well. I think those are all aspects that they deal with throughout the season. Those are all conversations that are had throughout the season. So it's unfortunate Emory got hurt. If he's not hurt, then Mario doesn't have an issue.
Yeah, and I think some of those anticipations or things they're anticipating in terms of roster moves at the quarterback position were self-created by Mario. He decided not to play Jakari Brown for some reason. He knew that would eventually lead to him leaving the program. When they benched Tyler, they knew that that was a possibility, that he was probably going to leave at the end of the year because he wants to play in the NFL. And that's not a good look when you get benched by your coach. And you're going to have to make a move somewhere else to prove yourself once again. So, yeah, they were prepared for it. Now, was the roster prepared? That's different. The roster wasn't prepared for it to absorb those sorts of losses and absorb the changes. But I think that's what happens when your roster is not fully realized yet in terms of, the depth and the foundation that you want to create. And that's why I think year 4 is that final year where you say, okay, now it's full of his guys. You have to have that depth behind guys where, it's next man up. You can plug guys in, even if it's a freshman.
This is from Trigger Trey on Twitter. Now that the season is over, has there been anything on the new facility? Is the area even fenced off yet? Where is it going to be built? I haven't been on campus. Practices are closed. We're not allowed to be on campus. Mario, the whole access of being able to be on campus for practice ended a long time ago. The regular season, nobody was on campus. Everything was over Zoom. The only time you were allowed to go on campus was for the day of the press conference, but not even when they're practicing. So I haven't been there, I want to say, since the middle of the season for a press conference. But I know that there are areas fenced off for the new facilities that are being built. They just have not broken ground yet. I asked recently and was told 2024. So part of this is City of Coral Gables, red tape, all the kind of stuff that you have to go through when you're breaking ground on stuff. Part of it is money, raising enough money for it all. It's an expensive endeavor. Right now, a lot of money's going towards NIL. That's where it's being pushed. So I think once we get past the signing period, efforts can be made towards raising the rest of the money that's needed to maintain the facilities and upgrade and do everything else that you want to do there, Trigger Tray. But 2024, I was told, was when it would start. Um, this is from Junior Zoe Freshenal. What does Coach Cristobal plan to do to vastly improve his game day management of football games? It's obviously an issue that needs to be remedied. Carlos, do you have any ideas what he can do? Is it playing more Madden? What can he do to improve his game day management skills?
I think he's going to invest, especially now. We just got over Cyber Monday. There's a lot of holiday deals going on. He could probably get himself a magic 8 ball, and just every time he's thinking about calling a timeout, shake it and figure out if that's the right move. It'll probably work out better when he's done up to this point. Should I take a knee? All signs point to yes.
Oh, that would be so fun. I would love to see that actually happen on the sideline.
Can you
Somebody's
imagine
holding
Mario
it.
walking, hey, give me the 8 ball. Give me the magic 8 ball right now. We're gonna make a decision. 4th and 1.
Uh, oh man, you know what? I love our listeners. This allows us to have fun, man. This is all in good spirits. Um, let's see here. Matt, 95 South Matt says Miami needs Cam Ward, more of a statement than a question, whatever it takes.
And
Greg,
95 South. Woo, there it is.
here's a good one from Rashawn 954. How hard was Manny clutching that FSU had during the first half of the Florida game?
Oh, bro, have you seen that meme? Is it I forget the kid. He's like, is it Alfred or from that old cartoon? That he's clutching his fist like really tight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's how Manny was clutching that hat. He was like, "This shit better not go down this way. God damn it!"
Oh man. Well, listen,
You
I
should have
am
seen.
going.
What was worse is you should have seen him after Jordan Travis got hurt. Had to go out and pile him with drinks because he was all depressed and crying.
Oh man, let me tell you, I will be there Friday with my Florida State hat to cover flying into Charlotte Friday, covering the game Saturday. See if they can finish the 12-0 the 13-0 season and get into the playoff. Um Last year my friend Mario set his house on fire. Last week I asked how 23 was going. He said, "It's better than last year. My house didn't burn down." Why are we comparing this year to last year's Mario-led dumpster fire? Shouldn't we compare 23 to 21 to judge progress? This is from Scary Rhombus on Twitter. Carlos, what is your thought of that analogy?
So apparently Mario must have been like an insurance guy during his time away from football. At some point, he was like an adjuster or something. This house is on fire. There's a leak here in the roof. The plumbing's bad. Anyway, to me, I would say that this year compared to 21 is a good comparison. I think he's gotten it back to baseline. I think the difference is when he took over this roster, he didn't anticipate how many holes there were and how ill-equipped it was to play the style of football that he wanted to play. Um, so, like you said, he had to set the place on fire. There was a little arson that went on with Mario. He walked around the structure with a gas can and lit it up. And then this year, we're finally just starting to repair that. You've got the foundation down a little bit, and you're starting to rebuild the whole house. Maybe next year we can finish the interior structure. We could put the roof on, and then we start building some stuff on the inside. Maybe we'll get a nice kitchen. Maybe a little island, little waterfall island. Maybe a nice farmhouse sink. Maybe some nice porcelain floors. Who knows what Mario's going to do once he has all this, all this wealth of talent that he brings in. Hopefully, he gets a tub shower combo that's very nice, like a very high end one.
I love all these housing references. Cranky Kane or Glitchy Morpheus on Twitter wants to know, of the four who went into the portal, who do you feel left on their own and who was given a little nudge by the coaching staff? Look, all of these guys don't know. I mean, they're part of this team. They were on the roster. Like, you can read the room, right? Hey, Tyler, you lost your starting job to Emory Williams. You threw too many interceptions. We're not gonna pay you as much NIL as we did a year
Yeah,
ago.
listen, give us back the 750. That BMW driving around now. Look here, here's a Prius. This is what you earned this year. The 750 goes back to the BMW dealership. You drive around the Prius now.
Hey, Corey Flagg, you went from starting, let me check this out here. Where's Corey Flagg? You went from starting 10 games in 2022 to 2 in 2023. Yeah. So what? I'm a backup linebacker. Jafari Harvey, you had 5.5 sacks and 8 starts in 2022. You had 1 sack and 5 starts in 2023, in large part because of injuries to others. Right? Like, it sort of tells itself, guys. I don't like, you talk about giving a nudge. The guys who get the nudge are the ones that aren't playing at all. Like, Cristobal says, hey man, it's not a free 4-year ride for you. These are 1-year renewable, right? So those are the guys that get the
Yeah, and
nudge.
Don Chaney saw the rise of Mark Fletcher. He's been hurt. He got hurt again at the end of the game against Boston College. He had a couple moments here this season where he looked good, but then just got passed up on the depth chart by other guys, and it's unfortunate. And I hope he has a really nice career as he moves on and stays healthy. Another thing I'd like to add is you guys with double Twitter handles, like your name is different than your Twitter handle. It's like very weird. Like Cranky Kane and Glitchy Morpheus, a guy named Matt and Jeff. Either you're serial killers or you guys are indecisive. You got to make a choice here, bro. This is not easy to deal with. All right, please pick one or the other.
I appreciate that, Carlos. We're gonna end it with this because we got a boatload of questions, and I appreciate it, guys. I asked for the questions. I try to get to most of them. The ones that are kind of repeat topics, I try to skip because I don't, again. So if you sent a question and we didn't get to it, I apologize. Carlos and I try to cover as many topics as possible, and we appreciate your participation every single week. This is from CJ, better known as DJ South Shore Shy. All right. He says, what will it take for Miami to be undefeated next season? Lastly, are you hearing anything about Jeremiah Smith and the defensive back commitment to Georgia, Ellis Robinson from South Florida, flipping to UM? Yes, I think Miami is going to continue to pursue both of those guys. I think with Ellis Robinson's coach taking the job at Syracuse, there's a chance Miami could get him. Jeremiah Smith, I'm not so sure about. I think he probably goes to Ohio State, but again, we will see. Family likes Miami. They're from Miami. We'll see what happens here in the next month. As far as what it'll take for Miami to be undefeated, Carlos, the floor is yours.
We have to call Kelvin because he's the only one that keeps calling for 15-0. So for them to be 15-0 next year, a slew of injuries across college football that have devastated the SEC and Power Five ranks to allow the Hurricanes to go undefeated. I mean, I don't know. I think if you're going to look just on the surface of it, they got to do better in terms of turning the football over. They've got to stop turning the ball over. They got to create more turnovers. They have to be better in the red zone on offense. I think defensively, they've got to continue to be good against the run. They've got to be better against the pass and not get fooled by tight ends like they did in the last couple games. Just really take the game to another level. They have to be better than what they've been. I think it takes being really good at all the small things and not being a team that constantly makes little stupid mistakes to be elite. So you can't get a 15-yard penalty on a kickoff return or a punt return because you're pissed off. You can't get a 15-yard penalty in the end zone on 4th down because you're pissed off that you thought the guy held you when he really was just bothering you up and you're not physical enough to make the catch. You can't make those stupid mistakes and go 15-0 on a consistent basis. And you can't turn the ball over all the time and be 15-0. So that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a lot of that, a lot of miracles, a lot of, cafecito in between at halftime. I don't know. It's going to take a lot of stuff, But is it likely? Probably not, unless somebody like Joe Namath comes back in his prime and takes over a quarterback for the Hurricanes.
Can I say something
It's a
that'll
bad old. That's a really old reference. Jesus Christ.
can I say something that'll stun you, Carlos?
Oh God, don't tell me you think they can go undefeated next year.
I think there's a chance they could go 11-1.
Okay,
All
that's
right.
different than undefeated.
All right. No, now hear me out. A lot needs to happen in college football, right? A lot needs to happen with coaching decisions, coaching turnover, transfer port. Who knows? This thing, But I'm gonna read you the schedule. You ready
Okay,
for this? August 31st at Florida. The Gators are coming off a 5-7 season, three consecutive 7-loss seasons. Graham Mertz is probably going to be their quarterback. But the Gators no bueno on defense, right? Like they're a beatable team. Florida A&M at home. Ball State at home. On the road at USF. USF made a bowl game in
much better.
they looked much better on the road at USF. That is a non-conference schedule. Ready for the conference schedule?
Okay,
At Cal, who just finished 6-6. At Georgia Tech, who just finished 6-6. At Syracuse, who just finished 6-6. And the game that I think is probably going to be one of the toughest, at Louisville, who's 10-2. Okay? The home games, Duke, who has a new coach, or is going to have a new coach. Mike Elko is gone. Florida State, who is going to have a roster that looks pretty different from the one that just finished 12-0. Virginia Tech, who just finished 6-6, and Wake Forest, who just finished 4-8. Now that I've read the schedule to you, Carlos, how do you feel?
how did I feel coming into this season, man? Like all this is yes, it's logical. They should maybe go 11-1, but how many games did they piss away this year? They're 7-5 for a
I
reason.
I got you. I'm not arguing with you, but listen, when we read the schedule last year, right? And we said Texas A&M, and we said Clemson, and we said on the road to Florida State, and we said at best 9-3. Now, when you look at the schedule right now, what do you say at best?
I could see 11-1 at best, but then again, that's not considering if somebody doesn't take a knee during a game, if we don't throw 9 interceptions in a game, if something doesn't happen that's catastrophic. I mean,
Right.
I think Florida on the road is going to be tougher than anticipated because I think Florida's going to have to spend money and they're going to get guys in the transfer portal too because Billy's going to try and save his ass. He's going to have to do something major to try and save his ass there at Florida. And playing in the swamp at the beginning of the year, first game of the season, when neither team's really gotten all the kinks out, I think that plays into Florida's hands. And I think playing
Will
in the
Will
swamp.
Rogers has played Florida before. He's not scared of that.
Well, don't you entice me that way, man. Now you got me excited about Will Rogers. They're lighting up the Gators. There's nothing I hate more than the Florida Gators, except for maybe the New York Knicks and the Jets. And ego. Have you ever had ego? Like liver?
Mm-mm.
You've never eaten liver?
Mm-mm.
Like, oh, that's terrible, man.
With fava beans either. None of those.
And the nice Chianti.
No. Carlos, thank you for coming on the Wide Right podcast. Make sure that you buy his wife's t-shirts that they're selling. You can follow Carlos.
Well, let's correct that statement, man. You're not gonna buy my wife's t-shirts. We're not doing like a sicko OnlyFans kind of thing where you guys are buying farts in a jar. That's not what we're doing. You're not buying my wife's used t-shirt. You're buying a shirt like this, Raul from Hialeah, that's brand new, unworn by anyone, printed just for you, in whatever size you like. Okay. I also have the MIA all day gear if you want to hit me up for those. So just go ahead and follow me on Twitter, MIA Ledo. I've made it simple for everyone because everybody complained that the wording of my Twitter handle was too complex, which it really wasn't, but that's fine. So I've made it a lot more simple for you to reach out to me and figure out what shirts you want, how many you want. And if you mention Wide Right, I will give you a 0% discount.
Now, if your wife puts a little bit of her perfume on it, can you upgrade the price of it? Would you do that at all?
No.
That's not happening, Carlos, for anybody, for any of those weird sickos that may have said, I'm not buying a t-shirt anymore.
I'll tell you what, I've got a bunch of pictures here in my office. And let me roll away for a second. I've got a bunch of pictures that I've had for years and I've got nowhere to put them. They're Hurricanes based. You buy 5 t-shirts and I'll give you some of these pictures. Check this out. Hang on.
Oh, what do we got? What do we got coming here? As he walks off into the t-shirt, according to our YouTube viewers. All right, what do we have here?
This is the advantage of watching the show on YouTube and you guys not listening to the pod. Those of you
Right.
that watch on YouTube, listen to the pod. Those of you listen to the pod, watch on YouTube. Look what I got here. Little, you can't even see it. I got a Willis McGahee up in here. See
Oh,
that?
look at that. That's nice.
Signed
Yeah.
by Willis McGahee. You buy 5 shirts, I'll send you the Willis McGahee.
Wow.
What I got
Giving
here,
away
look,
the old stuff.
little Reggie Wayne. You want a little Reggie Wayne
Wow.
picture? Not signed, but buy 5 shirts, I'll send you a Reggie Wayne.
Okay.
And who's we got here? I got a little Jeremy Shockey right there.
Look at
See?
that.
I got a few more. So if you buy 5 shirts, I will send you one of those pictures, not in the frame, because I don't want to ship that and I'm cheap. So hit me up.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to the Wide Right podcast. Like I said, I'm planning another episode
Which all of a sudden
Thursday.
turned into an episode of Antiques Roadshow and a flea
Yes.
market all into one.
Yes. Thank you for buying Carlos's t-shirts. Thank you for listening. We will be back with more Wide Right in the days and weeks ahead.
Peace.